So today we're going to dive into a really fascinating and complex legal idea, contempt of court. It's this powerful tool that's meant to protect the justice system, but it also walks this incredibly fine line with one of our most basic rights in a democracy, and that's free speech. All right, here's our game plan. We're going to kick things off with a pretty weird controversy that involves a school textbook of all things, and we'll wrap up by looking at the fundamental question of how we build trust in our most important institutions. So, where does this whole story start? Well, believe it or not, it kicks off in a pretty unlikely place for a high-stakes legal drama, a middle school classroom. Yeah, get this. In a pretty shocking move, the country's highest court actually took action against a textbook for 8th graders. They ordered it to be pulled from the shelves. And that, right there, raises a huge question.
Now, your first thought might be that this is all about censorship. But the answer is actually much deeper, and it has to do with a very sensitive power the court has to protect the very foundation of our justice system.
And that brings us right to the heart of the matter. This thing called contempt of court. So what exactly is it?
Well, at its core, it's the court's ability to make sure the whole process of justice can move forward without being obstructed or undermined. But of course, it gets a little more complicated than just that.
You see, contempt really breaks down into two main types. On one hand, you've got civil contempt. That's pretty straightforward. You just disobey a direct court order. But then there's criminal contempt, and this is where things get really interesting and kind of tricky. This includes stuff that scandalizes the court. We're talking about criticism that's so harsh it could actually threaten the public's confidence in the entire judicial system.
And this is absolutely key. This power isn't there to protect a judge's pride or their bruised ego. No way. It's all about protecting the public's faith in the system. Because let's face it, without that faith, the whole system is at risk.
You know, this whole idea of public faith gets you thinking. Where does a court really get its power from in the first place?
I mean, think about it. They don't control the government's budget. They can't raise taxes. They don't have the power of the purse.
And they don't have the power of the sword either. They don't command the army or the police force to make people follow their orders.
So if they can't control the money, and they don't have an army, why does anybody listen to them? Why does the government or you and I actually follow their rulings?
And here's the answer. And it's pretty profound. The real foundation of their power, the hard rock of it all, isn't something written down. It's the faith, the trust, and the goodwill that they've earned from all of us, the public, over many, many years. That trust is everything.
But here's the fascinating paradox. A lot of the wisest, most respected judges in history have argued that the best way to keep that public trust isn't by silencing your critics. It's actually by showing that you're strong enough to withstand their criticism.
Yeah, just look at this incredible quote from a former Chief Justice of India. He's basically saying that you earn respect through the quality of your work, through fair and fearless judgments. You don't just demand it by threatening to punish people.
And then you've got the legendary British judge Lord Denning, who takes it even a step further. He's saying, look, we're not afraid of what people say about us. There's something far more important at stake here, and that is freedom of speech itself. Wow.
And I just love this metaphor of broad shoulders. It perfectly captures this whole philosophy. The idea is that a strong, confident institution should be able to just shrug off some heated comments without getting rattled.
And this isn't just some abstract idea. It's been put into practice, sometimes with a fantastic sense of humor. Back in 1987, a newspaper called a bunch of judges old fools. You know what happened? Nothing. Lord Templeman's response was just brilliant. He basically said, well, being old is a fact, and being a fool, well, that's just a matter of opinion. Case closed. Okay, so if the courts are supposed to have these broad shoulders and just shrug things off, where's the line, right? When does fair criticism cross over and become a genuine, illegal attack on the justice system? Well, the courts have tried to lay out some ground rules. Criticism generally crosses that line when it's based on things that are just plain wrong, or when it's incredibly reckless, and especially when it's obvious the goal isn't to have an honest critique, but just to tear down the entire institution out of malice.
And protecting this line is super important. It's not about shielding judges' feelings. It's about preserving one of the court's most vital functions, judicial review. That's the power that allows them to hold politicians and other branches of government accountable. And that's a check on power that we all benefit from.
So, you see, it all comes back to this one central theme. It doesn't matter if we're talking about a school textbook or a fiery newspaper headline. This entire debate revolves around that fragile, essential thing, public trust.
And here's the real takeaway.
When a court shows it's willing to listen to criticism, when it uses those broad shoulders, it's not showing weakness. It's actually demonstrating incredible strength. It reinforces the idea that everyone, even the highest court in the land, operates under the rule of law. It's a lesson in confidence that, ironically, that textbook was probably trying to teach in the first place.
But all of this leaves us with one final, really tough question to think about. If a judiciary's power is truly built on public trust, how can that system effectively police itself and solve the corrosive problem of corruption from within? Now that is a puzzle that democracies everywhere are still trying to solve.